one about ObamaGate, and I want to start calling, there have been so many names floated around, whether you're going to call it, Russiagate or, Russia collusion hoax, Russia-Trump collusion hoax, or dossier gate, or all that kind of stuff. We need to start calling it ObamaGate, because at the end of the day, it's very clear that at the very minimum, President Obama was completely, fully, absolutely aware of what the DOJ and FBI were doing in terms of intentionally undermining candidate Trump and then President Trump, in terms of concocting false allegations against him, cooking up, I mean, really setting up some of the Trump officials for later to be charged with things completely unjustified. And I want to just talk about two things that are happening. One is yesterday there was testimony in the United States Senate. Sally Yates was testifying. And again, the term that's used, or the expression that the FBI came up with, they were calling this Operation Hurricane. And I think that there's an important point to be made about Sally Yates and her testimony. It was testy. She's the one, Sally Yates is the one who she stepped up as a acting attorney general right after Trump came into office, and very quickly was let go by him because she would not provide a defense. She would not, as her job was as acting attorney general, would not provide a defense for the Trump orders when President Trump came into office, and he issued executive orders relating to immigration and relating to be trying to protect America from having terrorists brought to America not adequately vetted. And so she wouldn't follow his orders. She wouldn't defend his orders. So he let her go early. She's not happy with him, but she was involved and inside the FBI as her as the former deputy U.S. Attorney General. And she testified yesterday in the Senate Judiciary Committee about the FBI's Crossfire Hurricane. And, they always have these great names they think up, Crossfire Hurricane. And that was the code name that the FBI gave to the counterintelligence investigation in 2016 and 2017. Not a lot came out of her testimony, except she's basically saying, I didn't do anything wrong. It was everybody else. Throws Comey under the bus a little bit. But at least it's an effort, and I'm thrilled to see it, an effort in the United States Senate by the Republican majority, slim as it is, but the Republican majority to continue to go after what happened inside the FBI and the DOJ, to insist that justice is going to occur, to insist on getting to the bottom of it. And I also want to mention that there was a wonderful interview with Sidney Powell, and she's, of course, the attorney, been on this show many times, but the attorney for Lieutenant General Michael Flynn. And her commentary, she was asked, well, what would you ask Sally Yates? What if you were there? What would you have asked her? And she makes the point that the effort of Sally Yates and others to go after Lieutenant General Michael Flynn and to continue to harass him, she's really kind of strong on the idea of just, this lady needs to be held accountable. She needs to be held accountable. The people in the DOJ, she points out that when the first two investigators, the FBI, went and met with Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, questioned him, they both went back to the DOJ. They both talked to Sally Yates, and they both told her, I think he's telling the truth. I don't think he was hiding anything. I think he was completely forthcoming. So she's hearing this report of the people who actually talked to Lieutenant General Michael Flynn and, did not act in a bold way and to protect the integrity of what was occurring, but instead was among the team very, very quickly urging President Trump to fire Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, even though she'd just been told that the investigators who talked to him found him to be credible in every way. I think it's important to understand these things because there is a wide cast of characters inside the DOJ and FBI who've not yet really been held accountable. Stories float around. The only people obviously ever being held accountable so far are people who were supposedly on the Trump team and had very minor roles, but were somehow they were targeted by the FBI. Had Paul Manafort, Roger Stone, and of course Lieutenant General Michael Flynn. On Flynn in particular, I want to focus on him just to say, we haven't talked about this issue, it seems like in weeks, because it wrapped up in Black Lives Matter and Antifa and, of course, COVID-19 and hydroxychloroquine. So we've kind of left, but all of this is still happening in Washington. All of this effort by people in the Senate to get to the bottom of things, to try to hold hearings, to demand answers, still ongoing is the prosecution, because it hasn't yet been dismissed, the prosecution of Lieutenant General Michael Flynn. This is a guy, who was arm twisted using the Mueller perjury trap technique used on many people, kind of twisted into pleading guilty, and then fortunately retaining the services of Sidney Powell, who was able to bring about, through persistent efforts, what she filed, what she insisted on, and then finally having Attorney General Barr appoint a special U.S. attorney. And this is really the turning point in the case with Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, is Barr appointed a special U.S. attorney, Jeff Jensen, to get in there and look at the documents that the FBI and DOJ had failed to turn over in the prosecution of Lieutenant General Michael Flynn. These are serious, serious things, serious wrongdoing that the DOJ and FBI engaged in. The Brady rule that basically says when someone's being criminally prosecuted, you, the prosecutor, you must turn over every bit of exculpatory evidence, exculpatory meaning tending to imply the person is not guilty, tending toward helping them with a defense, tending in any way to help the person who's defending themselves against the government. And so the only reason we're here today, where we've had the DOJ move to dismiss all charges against Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, is because Attorney General Barr appointed this Jeff Jensen guy to come in and look through documents in the Department of Justice and see, did we turn over everything? Did the DOJ? Because Sidney Powell, as Lieutenant General Michael Flynn's new attorney, very persistent, very informed, very aware of the intricacies inside what happens, how things work inside the Department of Justice. She knew that the DOJ had not complied with the Brady rule, had not turned over everything they needed to turn over. And through her many motions and insistence, finally, Barr assigns Jensen. Jensen looks through documents and says, you've got to be kidding me. All of these have been sitting here at the DOJ and you didn't turn them over. And once those were turned over, they were essentially completely exculpatory of Lieutenant General Michael Flynn. They were actually documents showing that not only was he not guilty of what he was charged with, but that the entire effort to prosecute him was a political attack on him. Notes on the documents turned over that are basically acknowledging they were setting him up. They were contemplating, how should we do this? What can we do? Are we doing this to trap him? Are we doing this to force him into pleading guilty? I mean, it was a monstrous set of facts. The DOJ was finally exposed of what happened inside the DOJ. That gets returned over, and finally, so we're at the place today where the DOJ filed a motion in the federal court case against Flynn with Judge Emmett Sullivan, basically saying, dear Your Honor, please dismiss all charges, and acknowledge in their pleading this was completely unjustified, unwarranted. The prosecution was unwarranted, must be dropped, and you cannot get Emmett Sullivan to drop the case. And I'm raising all this to say that I'm so impressed with and so grateful for Sidney Powell, because she's staying right on it. Where it stands right now is the 3-judge panel. So Sidney Powell, files a writ of mandamus to the appellate court. She says, you guys have got to tell Emmett Sullivan to drop this case. The 3-judge panel, the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, they order the writ of mandamus. They say, which are very rare, ordered the judge, you have to dismiss this case. You can't just refuse to dismiss it because you're a Democrat or because you don't like Flynn or for any other reason you have. You are not a prosecutor. You're a judge. This is your role. So still, Emmett Sullivan not conducting himself in any way consistently with his duty as a federal district court judge, he still won't dismiss the case. He files to have the entire appellate court, the entire D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, hear the case en banc. So that's where we sit today, where that hearing is August 11th. And so then, of course, after the hearing, then there's going to be some time period where the judges have to all talk to each other and decide what they're going to do and issue their order. It seems clear to many people because many in the justice system, especially leftists appointed by Obama, Clinton, or other leftists, simply will not follow the law. They just won't follow the law. So you have these judges, the majority on the Circuit Court of Appeals, are clearly, people assume they're going to say, they're going to let Judge Emmett Sullivan go forward with the next concocted, unjustified, illegal, unwarranted, unmitigated, disastrous effort he is trying to do, which is basically to say, even though I'm not the prosecutor, even though the prosecutor told me to drop the charges, I want to sit around, fiddle around the federal district court bench a while longer and think up reasons I can maybe not dismiss this case. Everyone assumes that the DC Circuit Court of Appeals will do. Everyone assumes then that's going to have to go to the Supreme Court. And now when we have a rogue Supreme Court where you have Chief Justice Roberts inexplicably voting with the left time after time, unjustified by the law, voting with the leftists, it's a real pickle because all this time, Lieutenant General Michael Flynn did not engage in anything that is anything like what the charges supposedly were, which were, the idea that the very start of all this, which was that, there had been some Trump-Russia collusion and somehow Flynn was, enabling it or tolerating it or engaged in it in some way. Never happened. And still he sits not yet dismissed as a criminal defendant, still sits convicted or having pled guilty, still awaiting sentencing. So it's a very, very tough thing right now. And it's time for people to just demand justice out of our system. And so we'll wait to hear what happens on August 11th. But there is a vital need to understand this isn't just about Flynn. It's not about how smart Sidney Powell is. It's about whether you have a justice system that will actually enforce law against high-ranking officials in this country. Because what's coming down the pike, apparently, and hopefully, and I actually think is coming down the pike, is Attorney General Barr and John Durham are going to release whatever the results are of their investigation. They're going to end up seeking indictments against some people, very high-ranking officials in the FBI and Department of Justice. We're going to be talking about criminal prosecution of former very high officials in our country. Very rarely happens, as you well know. But if we don't do that, if we say, let's just let it go because this is too ugly, we don't want to become a country that, engages in prosecution of our high elected officials, we can't do that. You end up with a banana republic, third world, no rule of law country, and we can't let America come to that. We can not.